There's been a lot of, let's call it discourse over the years surrounding the idea of the strong female character. What it is, what it isn't, and how to create one while avoiding the pitfalls normally associated with the concept. In the future, I might do a video on how to successfully develop said character, but for right now, we're going to take a look at one that has exploded onto the scene with gusto, namely Sofia Gigante, née Falcone, from the HBO smash hit miniseries The Penguin. We're going to go episode by episode here, so I would strongly recommend that you watch the series if at all possible before continuing on with this video. Ready? Alright, here we go. Right from the off, we're introduced to Sofia at a point in the episode where the Penguin is already behind the 8 ball. He's been called into a meeting with the leadership of the Falcone crime family, and he isn't told why. The reason isn't important since we aren't focusing on Oz, but the meeting serves as a way to rattle both the viewer and the protagonist, ratcheting up the tension in the scene. And then the doors open. We see a figure dressed in white, lurking in the background. There's no music, no fanfare, just a few discordant notes signifying that something is wrong. Is it the situation? Is it the character? We don't know, further increasing our discomfort. Sofia walks in slowly, almost carefully. Her posture is perfect, and she's almost demure in her movements. Bear in mind this is all before she even comes into focus. Once Oz realizes someone's there, he gets up, and we're treated to our first real look at Sofia. She's well put together, her expression is calm, but there's something in her eyes that showcases instability and pain. As she and Oz talk, we get the distinct impression that she knows more than she's telling, and it's this, coupled with her implied reputation, that make her a figure of fear almost immediately. And she knows this, what's more. She uses it to knock people off center, putting them on the back foot whenever they're around her. Later, we learn a little bit more about Sofia and where she's been. We discover the root of her relationship with Oz, and with the benefit of hindsight, we know that she's subtly calling him out for what he did to her. It's this kind of layering of subtext that fleshes her out in a full and complete manner, and it's something that a lot of movies and shows tend to ignore in favor of driving the plot forward. At the end of the episode, we're given our first true glimpse of Sofia. By stripping Oz down and tying him to a chair, we learn that she's internalized her experiences at Arkham, allowing them to rule her in a way that she struggles with for the next few episodes. It's brutal, it's effective, and it reveals just how far off center she really is. We also learn the why of her and her brother's relationship. It gives us something to cling on to, and allows us to understand her desperate need for revenge. Establishing a character's motivation is all well and good, but to make your audience empathize with the villain pushes them further into the world you've created, and keeps them hungry for more. Throughout this entire sequence, Sofia remains relatively calm and in control. This highlights her strength of character as she doesn't allow herself to be completely ruled by her emotions, even if she does find satisfaction in her actions themselves. She remains just on the right side of sanity, even if she is holding on by her fingertips. Episode 2 opens inside a nightmare. Sofia is still incarcerated in Arkham, and her brother has come to visit her. We discover that this is simply part of a therapy session, and realize that, despite her release, she's still trapped there inside her mind. She's still defined by what they made her. Her subconscious clings to it, despite her wish to move on with her life. Through her interactions with her therapist, we find how vulnerable this makes her feel. Being brought back there, even if only in her mind, causes cracks in her facade, which she tries to hide by briefly attacking Dr. Rush and then leaving altogether. Moving on, our next encounter with her is when Oz is meeting with the Capos regarding the stolen drops. Within seconds of hearing the story, she realizes that there's a mole in the organization and calls on Luca to hunt him down. This scene reveals just how intelligent Sofia actually is. She accurately deciphers Oz's plan within about a minute of receiving the information, and it's only her status within the organization, or lack thereof, that stops her from being able to act on it. She also understands when not to push further. A lot of strong female characters tend to overplay their hands, bulldozing others in order to get what they want. Sofia, on the other hand, understands that she doesn't have a lot of cards to play, so she decides to hold back and launch her own investigation under the table. Later, we find Sofia in her bedroom closet. The sheets spread out on the floor indicate that she's been sleeping in there for some time, and the scratches on her neck show that her dreams have started to affect her in the real world. This little sequence gives her more development than many fictional characters receive in entire series, be it books, movies, or television. It shows the sheer depth of her PTSD, as not only does the closet make her feel safe, but it's also roughly the size of her cell in Arkham. At her brother's funeral, we find Sofia standing alone, despite the implied size of the event. She's apart from her family, showing that even at a funeral she's ostracized, and it's only because of her father that she's tolerated at all. It's this exact framing of her character that becomes important later on, as it makes it easy for the viewer to rationalize her killing the rest of the Falcone family. She has no connection to them anymore. They don't like her, and she doesn't like them. At the end of the episode, we see that Sofia has finally begun to trust Oz, but this comes only after he goes through great lengths to prove his innocence. It's only after all the loose ends are tied up in neat little bows and everything is accounted for, diamonds included, that she finally lets her guard down enough to let him in. In episode 3, we see that despite her tolerance of Oz and her agreement to work with him, she's still clearly uncomfortable with the arrangement. She's still playing her cards close to her chest, and she tries to assert her dominance over him by stating, in the next scene, we discover that she's orchestrated the development and rollout of Gotham's new party drug almost single-handedly. While it might not be explicitly stated, we can make the assumption, given what we know about her brother's reputation and her brief conversation with Oz. This further exemplifies her intelligence when you consider the short amount of time that she's been out of Arkham. When she and Oz are meeting with the Triads, we're shown how comfortable she is with the criminal element. She reveals not only her knowledge of their organization, but how a distribution deal with them would be arranged. When a Triad goon removes a pistol from her that not even Oz knew she had, we learn that being comfortable does not mean she isn't cautious. Later in the scene, we see Sofia's grace under pressure, as she's not only pressed by Oz's Triad contact, but is forced to assimilate new information about Oz's plans completely on the fly. This characteristic is reinforced at the end of the episode, where we're shown the difference between how she and Oz react to pushback. Sofia easily brushes off her uncle's persistent insults, understanding that they represent little more than Vidi's attempts to gain control of a situation. Oz, on the other hand, completely loses control and attacks the mobster, trying to force the respect he feels he's owed. During the meeting with Feng Zhao, we're shown how shrewd a businesswoman she can be, as she gives him the soft sell about how Bliss, the new drug, could revolutionize Gotham's narcotics market. She knows what to say and how to say it, establishing a personal connection with a man that she otherwise has no relation to. She presses further by using her knowledge of mass psychology to explain how Gotham needs this drug after the events of the Batman, and uses the already drug-addled clubbers below as a perfect example. Unfortunately, despite her perfect execution, the Triad boss is still reticent to make a deal, and that's when Sofia brings out the big guns. She brings the entire pitch back to her time at Arkham, revealing that this drug was used to make the most heinous offenders Gotham could offer placid and euphoric. While not a haymaker in and of itself, Sofia knows to leave on that note, saying that if the Triads aren't interested, there are plenty of other organizations that would be willing to take the risk. Undoubtedly the most important episode of the series from a Sofia standpoint, it's here that we learn about who she was before she was committed. In the opening scene, we watch her as she watches Oz begging for his life. As his betrayal is revealed, we can see the gears begin to turn inside her as she realizes that playing by Gotham's rules will never get her what she wants. Across the entirety of the series, it's this kind of conveyance that Kristen Milioti consistently excels at. And it's one of the reasons that Sofia is so compelling as a character. We can see what she's thinking, even if she rarely says it out loud. Brought back to a decade prior, we find Sofia launching a charity to help underprivileged women in Gotham. On its face, this is a noble endeavor, and one that serves to show the difference between Sofia then and Sofia now. Later, during her dinner with Carmine, it's revealed that although Sofia might have had noble intentions, the charity also serves as a way for the Falcone family to worm their way into Gotham's political landscape. It's at this dinner that we're also shown the plans that her father had for her, intending for Sofia to become the head of the family once Carmine steps down. This sets up the fall from grace trope that is eminently effective when developing a character from a writing standpoint. Next, we see the natural curiosity behind her intelligence as she questions Alberto about their father. Despite Carmine's clear threat about picking at old wounds, we see that Sofia is unable to leave well enough alone. This characteristic is one that humanizes her and lays the seeds for her eventual downfall. She doesn't know how to make the right moves all the time, and doesn't seem to understand the kind of man that Carmine truly is, believing, as any child would, that her father is fundamentally a good man, doing what he has to do for his family. We're again given a glimpse into the fundamental changes that Sofia has undergone when we see her reactions to the crime scene photos that Summer Gleason shows her. The shocked expression, the heavy breathing, and stuttered words provide a sharp contrast to her casual murder of a street kid in episode 1. During Sofia's meeting with her lawyer, we're forced into a position where we have to empathize with her as a character. This is accomplished through the use of one word: Arkham. We, the audience, know what it means to be sentenced there, and given our understanding of the situation surrounding her, we know that it's unjust. This empathy is driven even further home during her initial admittance to the facility, by stripping Sofia down, dehumanizing her, and forcing her to go through these invasive medical exams. The show forces us to wince and look away at the treatment this young woman is receiving. By tearing away everything she knows and everything she was, the Fall from Grace plot thread is completed, and leaves us wanting her to become the strong woman we've seen thus far. This is one of the easiest ways to develop not only the strong female character, but a strong character in general. The principles behind such writing being almost universal in nature. The character must go through trials, they must fail, and they must lose, but they must never give up. The rest of her time in Arkham only serves to reinforce the principles I've already gone over, with the aside that we're shown how Sofia comes into contact with the drug she's peddling outside of Arkham's walls, which, I'd like to mention, cannot be FDA certified for use on anyone, let alone psychiatric patients. When she comes to, we find Sofia in Dr. Rush's home, recovering from her attempted murder at the hands of the Maronis. It's here that we're shown all the gears finally clicking into place, as Sofia realizes that the playbook she's been using was never going to let her succeed. She finally understands that if she wants to take power, she's going to have to shake things up. When we next see her, this change is immediately evident, as Sofia is now wearing more revealing clothing that showcases her scars rather than hides them, and her makeup is done much differently. This visual component is essential in separating this new version of the character from the one we've seen thus far. And it's at this point that everything comes together. We, the audience, fully understand her character, where she's been, what she's done, and what she's gone through. And it allows us to accept and even applaud her decision to murder the rest of the Falcone family. Had this been the version of the character we were initially presented with, Sofia would have been off-putting, seen as arrogant, delusional, and frankly annoying. Context is everything, as they say, and the Penguin adroitly provides it to give us a true, strong female character. Coming into the aftermath of the murder of the rest of her family, we find Sofia watching as the young niece she spared, Gia, is led away by child services. We see an almost forlorn look in her eyes, as she comes face to face with the reality of what she's done. And we can infer that she's questioning whether or not she has the stomach for what she still needs to do. In the crypt, we find that Sofia has spared Johnny Vitti in order to secure cash reserves for her plan. This shows yet again that she's able to think strategically, even as she completes her revenge on the family. Really quickly, I'd like to say that the image of her laying on the Tomb of the Dead is very evocative, and not only would have been an excellent comic book panel, but is an amazing metaphor for her current position. As she interrogates Vitti, we see her hallmark calmness. She is not ruled by her emotions even when she's in the superior position. In fact, we see an almost amused expression as Vitti tries to tell her how she should be moving forward. During the meeting with the last of the Falcone goons, we see that Sofia has finally cast off the remnants of her old life. This is exemplified by her choice of clothing, which not only casts her in a more feminine light, but again accentuates the scars she's earned in her struggles. She uses what Arkham has made her, rather than trying to leave it behind. Immediately, she plays a gambit with her admission of guilt in the murder of her family, counting on the fact that this will show her honesty and ruthlessness to those assembled. This is driven home by her casual murder of Vitti, which we have to assume she planned from the start. By executing him in this manner, she shows that the last of the old guard have been swept away, and there is now only the Gigante family and their new beginning. This newfound willingness to take risks is reinforced when, as her first official act, she not only seeks out Salvatore Maroni, but offers him an alliance in order to destroy Oz and his crew. The Falcones of old would never have extended such a truce, no matter the odds stacked against them, and it shows that Sofia has brought a different way of thinking to the table. Despite this, Sofia still comes at the meeting from a position of strength, by not only executing Maroni's guards, but by keeping a gun on him until the opportune moment. She might be looking towards the future, but she hasn't forgotten the past, and the blood feud that's been raging between the two families for decades. We open on the afterglow, such as it is, of a liaison between Sofia and Dr. Rush. We find that he's been tied to a chair during the encounter and is covered in deep scratches that have bled onto him. Despite appearances, this is not, in any way, shape, or form, the result of a kink. This is Sofia's inability to release control, even for a moment, a piece of her unresolved PTSD from her time at Arkham. Her dismissive attitude towards Dr. Rush also speaks to the fact that this tryst was more to do with a physiological need than any sort of emotional connection. The next scene, however, showcases the exact opposite. The cooking sequence with Sal has all the hallmarks of a father-daughter moment, which under different circumstances would be very touching. Sal represents a fatherly figure to Sofia, and a kinder one than she ever had, given that we can assume she never had such normality with Carmine. This is reinforced by the subtle looks that she gives the crime boss, almost as if she's trying to deliberately repress any emotion she might be feeling at the moment. Her need for family and togetherness is on full display here, despite her best efforts, and for what it's worth, we see the same kind of emotions from Maroni. Additionally, we discover that she needs Sal as a business partner, to ground her in the realities of the situation she's made for herself. He succinctly tells her that even though they have a new deal with the triads, if her newly created family can't supply the necessary drugs, they will go somewhere else, namely into Oz's waiting arms. Despite all the correct moves that Sofia has made, she still makes mistakes. This is typified by her meeting with Eve. Going to meet Oz's paramour alone was not the smartest move to make, especially when you consider that she only got up to the woman's apartment because Eve allowed it. This could easily have been a trap set by Oz to lure her to a location where she would be alone, and it was only blind luck that kept that from being the case. This reveals that although Sofia knows how to make moves at the top of the ladder, she's still unfamiliar with how things work at the bottom. She doesn't understand how the streets work yet, and if she's not careful, it will be her undoing. In the closing sequence of this episode, we see her standing in Oz's apartment, watching Vic and Oz's mother dancing. We see the same, almost sad expression on her face that she had in episode 5, when she watched Gia being taken away. Here, the seeds are sown of what could easily have been her downfall, as she hesitates when confronted by the realities of her newfound position. Coming to the penultimate episode, we find Sofia cooking breakfast for Oz's mother when she receives a call from Maroni. As they talk about Oz's future, Sofia smiles to herself in a way that we really haven't seen before. It's real, it's genuine, and it's a direct reaction to Oz's pain. Not only does she think she's close to the finish line, but she believes she can make Oz pay for all the pain he's caused her. In interacting with Francis Cobb, Sofia immediately extends an olive branch by delivering the breakfast personally. In a way, this is the same tactic she used on Eve and Maroni. Open from a position of strength, then kill them with kindness, only it doesn't work this time. Sofia is playing the game with a superior opponent, one who's been at it for a lot longer than she has, and one that sees right through her strategies. Francis's walls are firmly in place, and she isn't taking them down for anybody. What I find most interesting about this scene is the way that Francis almost teaches Sofia about the game she's playing. She tells Sofia point blank that it doesn't matter what she thinks she's doing, the game is always the same. We can see, however, that at this point, Sofia doesn't believe it. She still thinks she's done something new, something novel, something that no one has ever seen before. This kind of confidence is the ultimate double-edged sword, and is one that is used perfectly throughout the show. A character must have confidence, conviction that what they're doing is correct, even in the face of contrary evidence. And it's this exact confidence that has them holding on to their beliefs far longer than they should, to the point of their own ruination. Later, the consequences of Sofia's confidence are thrown back in her face as she learns that Gia has been asking to speak to the police. Throughout this sequence, Sofia has flashbacks to her time in Arkham, and realizes the full extent of what she's done. Not only has she left open a potentially lethal threat in Gia, but she comes face to face with the fact that she has, in every capacity, destroyed this girl's life. It's at this point that we can see Sofia's convictions start to waver. What's the point of being at the top of the pile if it's a pile of corpses made by you? We can almost hear Francis's words ringing out in Sofia's mind as she realizes that the only way to win this game is to not play at all. During her conversation with Dr. Rush, Sofia finally gives voice to the truth that she's tried to ignore. It doesn't matter how you shake things up, what rules you break, and what rules you follow. The game is always the same, and utter ruthlessness is the only way to play it. Sofia realizes that she wants freedom, In a way, she wants exactly what she gave Gia. And if it weren't for her hatred of Oz, that's exactly what she would do. This kind of change, if not executed properly, can be very jarring. And it's only through a full and complete understanding of a character that it can be done correctly. The audience must understand who and what the character is in order to accept such a shift. When we rejoin Sofia in the finale, we see that she's moments away from achieving her revenge. She's got Oz and his mother tied up, and she's trying to force him to admit that he murdered his brothers as a child. We can see the pleasure she's taking in the act, as she drinks in Oz's fear and pain. Francis is almost an afterthought in this sequence, despite the torture she's undergoing at the hands of Dr. Rush. Forcing Oz's family to break in this way is the sweetest vengeance she can enact, given what she knows about him and his relationship with his mother. It's in this moment, however, that she truly realizes the man that Oz is. She can see that no matter what she does, he will never admit the truth, and she finally understands that she'll never be able to tear him down in the way that she wants. After his escape, Sofia brings together the disparate street gangs of Gotham and offers them everything, all the assets and power that the Falcone family has held for generations. All they have to do is bring her Oswald Cobb. This final effort to bring down the Penguin reflects Sofia's objectives, and how she was forced to change them as the war between her and Oz evolved. In the beginning, she wanted to destroy him, by taking everything he'd fought his entire life to achieve. The drug trade, his crew, the money, she wanted it all. When she couldn't do that, she tried to hurt him by exposing the lie that his relationship with his mother was built on, effectively tearing the man down by revealing the rotten foundations he'd built his life on. And when she couldn't do that, she was forced to settle for simply killing him, stopping him when he was just about to take control of Gotham's underworld. In this scene, she lays all her cards on the table, playing a last desperate hand in an effort to win the smallest pot. She wants Oz dead, and that's all. She's already leaving Gotham. She doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. She's leaving behind all the power she's amassed, and she's willing to start a new life somewhere beyond the decaying city. But she just can't let Oz go. Her utter hatred of the man keeps her from riding off into the sunset. Killing him is all she has left. It's all she can do to him, and it's the one thread she can't seem to stop pulling. Later, at the airport, we can see the satisfaction on her face as she confronts Oz for what she believes is the final time. She expects to see him broken and downtrodden in the face of defeat, and realizes moments too late that this has all been a trap for her. The Triad Capo and his associates gun down Feng Zhao and Sofia's bodyguards, leaving her to stand alone, wishing she'd just gotten on the plane. Despite this, she accepts her defeat stoically, unwilling to show weakness to her enemy, even when she's at her lowest point. What's interesting to me is that she doesn't see the irony in the situation. Oz is doing exactly what Sofia has already done, shaking up the game and changing the rules so that he comes out on top. His coordinated removal of the gang leadership perfectly reflects Sofia's murder of her family, with exactly the same result. As she rides with Oz for the final time, she lashes out as Johnny Vitti did, trying to twist the knife in an effort to make the Penguin hurt for all the pain he's caused her. And when she stands on the riverbank, she accepts her fate. No fear, no screams, no tears, only silent resignation. It's only after she realizes that she won't be dying that the facade cracks and the terror shows on her face. Because while she may still be alive, as Oz has told her, she will be going to hell. She'll be going back to Arkham. Sofia Falcone is one of the best written and best acted characters in recent memory. She's intelligent, she's strong, and she's got her own unwavering moral compass, skewed as it may be. She didn't lose because of some massive character flaw or because of some trite betrayal. She lost because she was playing a game the full scope of which she didn't understand. She didn't realize what it would require of her, the fundamental changes it would force on her soul. And when she finally did, she refused to go any further. She stopped playing altogether, relinquishing her throne and instead focusing her efforts on revenge against the man who'd stolen a decade of her life. Unfortunately, despite her best efforts, Oz simply outplayed her. He used his superior experience and understanding of the players and their rules to maneuver her into a position she couldn't come back from. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how you write a strong female character. This is how you develop a compelling villain for your stories. This is a perfect representation of everything writers should be working towards, and it should be taught in writing classes for years to come. I'm all wrapped up here, so if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you're feeling it, and check out the rest of my channel. I also have a link to my website in the description, where you can find my blog and a list of my books on Amazon. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.